my name is Arundhati and this is part of our Ask Me Anything challenge at Aham Yoga. We asked all our viewers to send in any questions that they had about yoga poses, about yoga philosophy, yogic lifestyle, just about anything about yoga. Okay, so our next question comes to us from Shrujana, who wants to know how much effort should she put into a yoga pose? When should we know to stop, and how deep to go into an asana, into a yoga pose? Okay, so Shrujana, this is a great question. It has in fact been asked a couple of times in our challenge. Now, every yoga pose has a final limit, and it is important to not go beyond that final limit. To understand this final limit of the pose, one needs to know the alignment of every pose. Now, it's not possible for me to go over the alignment of every single yoga pose in this video, but know that any yoga pose you do ever has a final point that you do not exceed, a final point where the pose is considered to be complete. For example, in Warrior 2, your sit bone does not go below the knee of the bent leg. Similarly, every pose has a stopping point or several stopping points that you do not go beyond. It is extremely important to understand alignment so you can practice safely. When you reach that final point of the pose, the final point where the pose is considered complete, that's as much as you need to do in a yoga pose. So that's one part of it. Now there is another part of the journey towards that complete pose where you need to understand good effort versus bad effort. Good effort is when you are trying to make intentional progress. You are trying to go ahead, trying to go into the next step of the pose. Whereas not so good effort is where you're just blindly pushing and all you're thinking of is that external form of the pose. Okay, now how a pose looks from outside is actually pretty immaterial. What we really want to focus in your asana practice is how a pose feels on the inside. Patanjali said Sthiram Sukham Asanam, where he's talking about letting the pose have qualities of steadiness and lightness and being firm without being heavy or rigid. So every pose you do, whether it's journey towards a pose or whether you're at the complete pose itself, you want to feel light, spacious, expansive on the inside and steady. You should never feel like you're just holding the pose because your ego is asking you to hold the pose. Okay, so keeping good and bad effort in mind, as well as the complete asana, a point that you do not go beyond, will help you understand whether you're making good effort or not so good effort.